Well, we're looking at two motorcycles, couldn't be more alike, couldn't be less alike. One is the one on the left, obviously, is a Yamaha 650 1977 model. On the right, a 2013 Honda 700X, NC700X D. The D standing for a dual clutch automatic transmission. Both bikes have a vertical two-cylinder motor, vertical twin. The Yamaha displaces 654 cc's, the Honda 670 cc's. The bore on the Yamaha, 75 millimeters, stroke 74, just a little over square. Honda, by contrast, is 73 by 80, seriously under square engine, much longer stroke. It's 6 millimeters longer and longer stroke and a 2 millimeter smaller bore. Compression ratio on the Yamaha, 8.5 to 1, 10.7 to 1 on the Honda. Horsepower, very similar. 50 on the XS650 Yamaha, 51 on the conventionally shifted Honda, and 47 on the dual clutch model, such as I have. Fuel is fed to the Yamaha with two Mikuni 38 millimeter constant velocity carburetors. Honda gets a fuel injection system with a 36 millimeter throttle body. Wheelbase, well, the Honda's a little longer. It's 60.5 inches, and the Yamaha is 56.5 inches, so it's a 4-inch longer bike. But the seat height is almost identical at about 32 inches. So, as for the forks, Yamaha front forks give you almost 6 inches of travel, but they're a 35 millimeter diameter stanchion tube, and the Honda gives you 5.5 inches of travel with a 41 millimeter stanchion tube. At the rear, Honda has a single shock, gives almost 6 inches of travel. On a Yamaha dual shock, 3.25 inches of travel. Both have disc brakes in the front. The Yamaha being a 298 millimeter disc and a single piston caliper, Honda has a drilled and cut in a strange shape front disc that's 320 millimeters in diameter, and the front caliper is a 3-piston caliper that's linked to the rear disc brake. Tires on the Yamaha, 18-inch rear by 4 inches, 350 by 19 front. Honda has modern 17-inch tires front and rear, 120/70 on the front and a 160 by 60 on the back. Both hold roughly the same amount of gas, 3.7 in the Honda, 4 gallons on the Yamaha. Yamaha usually averages around 50 miles to the gallon, and most people run 61 miles per gallon on the Honda. Weight, 505 pounds on the Honda, 500 pounds on the Yamaha. Interesting. I'm going to do a little walkabout so you can see these bikes up a little closer and point out a couple of really interesting things. The Honda appears to be a sport, dual sport adventure bike, but in fact it actually isn't. The tires alone would send you on your butt if you went off trying to do any off-road riding. Another thing is that the ergonomics on both bikes are darn near identical. The Yamaha, while it's a standard, you're sitting there with a seat height of about 32 inches, as is the NC700X. Your forward lean is 0 degrees on the Yamaha, 7 degrees on the Honda. But your knee angle, 86 degrees on the Yamaha, 87 on the Honda. Hip angle, 87 on both bikes. So basically, when you're on these bikes, there's not much to choose between. They both have the standard sit up and beg riding posture. Very comfortable, good for long distances or short. We've been looking at two motorcycles with very similar specifications and ergonomics. They also have the same mission, which is to provide dependable, economical transportation in almost any setting or venue. As I said, as much as they are the same, they are also very different. I've ridden both in cities, the country, twisty roads, long-distance touring. Even though the Yamaha is a bike from the 70s and the Honda is from the present, in terms of ride quality, handling, and comfort, I'd grade them both above average. Call a Honda a solid B, the Yamaha a C+, mostly because of the engine vibrations, which aren't bad, but are, you can feel them. And of course, the Honda does handle better than the old Yamaha. Grading them more generally, and again, not making any allowances for the age difference, the Honda blows the Yamaha away because of having better brakes, lights, and weather protection, and tires. Just take the wide variety of 17-inch radial tires available and contrast that to the number of 18 and 19-inch tire styles on the market. This gives the Honda a great advantage by allowing the owner to pick tires maybe for better mileage or improved cornering, or possibly even a little off-road riding, which I don't recommend. Let's give the Yamaha a D+ for usability index, and the Honda an A-. Finally, considering the Honda has the benefit of 36 years of improvement over the Yamaha, there's no real comparison in terms of the technology they have. First, there's the Honda electronics. Things like self-diagnostics that identify and report problems to the rider or maybe a mechanic before the parts fail and you have to walk. Instead of a mechanical speedometer and tachometer that are never exactly right, the Honda's instruments are digital and are very accurate. Plus, it has a fuel gauge and 2 trip meters, which might not be a huge improvement, but are handy. And speaking of electronics, the Honda's alternator makes enough power to support heated grips, clothing, GPS, radar detector, and a lot of other electronic farkles. The Yamaha alternator will handle an H4 halogen headlight accessory, but that's about it. And that's just the tip of the technology iceberg that lets Honda put the Yamaha into the weeds. The Honda has a state-of-the-art dual-clutch automatic transmission, something like a Formula One race car would use. A real gear-driven transmission controlled by either the rider in the manual mode or by the computer in either of the 2 automatic modes. Man, I love this thing. It makes any other way of shifting gears seem primitive. After owning a Yamaha FJR 1300 AE with the electric clutch, my conversion to the dark side started. Now, if there was a way to install a dual clutch transmission in a Yamaha XS650, I'd probably do it. So that's about the end of my story.